Welcome to Execute Lean Six Sigma Projects with an Enhanced Roadmap for Success. I would like to welcome you all and thank you for taking the time to join us today. First, I will address some logistical issues for the session and then introduce our speaker, Forrest Breifogel. We do have a lot of material planned for the 1-hour webinar, so the audio will be muted for the remainder of the presentation to ensure that we are able to get through the entire presentation in the time allowed. We will not be able to hear you, but you will be able to hear Forrest. And do not let this stop you from sending us text questions through the system during the presentation. We value your questions. If Forrest cannot answer all the questions during the presentation or at the end of the presentation, we will either email you or give you a phone call with a response. We do appreciate your participation. There will also be a recording of the webinar available on our website, smartersolutions.com, within 24 hours. You will receive an email with a link to the recording. Please note that as a participant in this webinar, we want to hear from you. At the end, we will present multiple contact options, including a survey for your feedback. I will now introduce our presenter, Forrest Breifogel. In a professional career spanning over a quarter century, Forrest Breifogel has established himself as a leading-edge thinker, prolific author, an innovative consultant, and a world-class educator. He's also a successful business executive. He has authored or co-authored over a dozen books, and in his 14th book, The Business Process Management Guidebook, an Integrated Enterprise Excellence BPM System, Forrest presents an executable method for managing and benefiting the bottom line of business. This methodology was introduced in the 5-book set, Integrated Enterprise Excellence, that provides radical management advances in the utilization and integration of scorecards, strategic planning, and process improvement. You all may know that Mr. Breifogel was named Quality Professional of the Year for 2011 by Quality Magazine and also received the prestigious Crosby Medal from the American Society for Quality, ASQ, in 2004 for a very popular book, Implementing Six Sigma, the 2nd edition. Forrest is currently located here with me in Austin, Texas, where he founded Smarter Solutions back in 1992. We're glad to have him today. Forrest, welcome.
Thank you, Yvonne. What I want to do is start off right away with a polling question. What I'd like for you to do is select the issues that you've been seeing occurring in organizational Lean Six Sigma deployment. And what you can do is you can select more than one of the options if it's appropriate for you. So projects take too long to complete, if ever. If that's an issue that you've seen, check that box. Practitioners should not follow a consistent roadmap. Sometimes executive question their monetary benefits that are reported. Projects are not linked to scorecard improvement needs, or maybe you've seen none of the above. How are we doing, Alon?
So we're getting lots of votes. Good participation. We appreciate it. And we'll go ahead and close the polls. It looks like most have voted here in just a second. All right, and I'll go ahead and share the results.
Well, it looks like we've got somewhat of an even distribution. There's a few people that have not seen any above, but it looks like a lot of the people have been seeing projects that take a very long time to complete. That's one of the biggest ones, and the other three are about the same percentages. Okay, well, thank you for your participation with that. I think that's what I'm really trying to describe in this session here. What can we do to make Lean Six Sigma more successful? So the learning objectives that I've listed below is how I'm going to approach trying to stimulate some thoughts on what we might do better relative to Lean Six Sigma deployments. But first, I'm going to start with a little bit of a history about Six Sigma and Lean to make sure that everybody's up to the same speed or the same page when we're starting. Then I'm going to go in and start talking about where we can find some issues and resolution to many Lean Six Sigma deployments. I'll be moving on then to how can we create an enhanced execution roadmap that truly integrates Lean and Six Sigma. I believe one of the people responded when they were signing up that a lot of times we don't integrate Lean and Six Sigma, and I think that's really important. We'll talk about that. And then finally, how can we create improvement efforts so that the big picture benefits and the executives see the benefit of that? Fundamentally, we're going to be asking, is there a better way? So let's get into a little bit of history. So Motorola initiated Six Sigma in the 80s. Now, why did they do that? Well, they had some quality problems, and they wanted to improve their quality. How did they do that? They trained people to be experts in Six Sigma methodologies, statistical tools primarily, and those people went in and mentored other people so that now you had practitioners who could apply these techniques to their work environment. Now, some companies try to model the Six Sigma deployment of Motorola. Texas Instruments and IBM were two of those companies. Now, I worked at IBM when they were undertaking this initiative, which is about 1990. I can still remember how Six Sigma created a lot of innovation, because one of the big things, and perhaps the only thing that executives came away with, is that every metric should improve by a factor of 10 in 2 years to be on the road to be Six Sigma quality. So the innovation that I mentioned was about a week before the executives from corporate were coming down to review the metrics. There was a lot of innovation in making my numbers look good, so executives didn't bother me. That's just the hard facts of what happened. And really, nothing really happened in my mind that was that great, at least at IBM. Now, in the mid-90s, GE started to embrace Six Sigma under Jack Welch's leadership as CEO. Now, their strategy was to execute projects that had financial benefits. We were to undertake quality improvement projects with a focus on reducing defect rates, but you wanted to have it something that was important to the business. You wanted to have people working on projects that were important to business. You then created also a support infrastructure of executive champions, black belts, and so on, where the black belts, there were full-time practitioners, and green belts were part-time practitioners that worked on the projects themselves. Now, many companies followed the GE model. Now, one company that I was involved with in the early stages was Bombardier, because the group that actually did the deployment within GE asked me to do the training for black belt training at Bombardier in Northern Ireland and Toronto, and this was in the 97-98 timeframe. So I worked with that company to help them define and execute projects. Now, about that same time, I was under contract to do the second edition of my first book, which actually included a roadmap for Six Sigma that was statistical methods for testing, development, manufacturing. But instead now I created a book called Implementing Six Sigma, which came out in 1999. Now, in this book, it also talked about the deployment roadmap that you had for Six Sigma, where you had black belts and green belts and champions. Now, champions were executives that were managing, so-called to speak, the portfolio of projects that were getting executed by the black belts. However, I've noticed recently a lot of times organizations don't have this champion role and really rely more on the black belts within the organization. They may have an executive, but they don't necessarily have champions that are working these projects. Now, there's a lot of confusion or questions relative to Six Sigma metrics, and I'm going to take a couple minutes to describe where these metrics came from and just a little bit about them. So sigma is abbreviation, a Greek abbreviation for standard deviation. And if you look at the distribution, a normal bell-shaped curve, you notice you have a mean, and now you've got standard deviation is calculated there, represented as sigma, and a 3 standard deviation represents 99.73% of the population. If you put a 1 standard deviation shift within it, like you would in 6 sigma, then you could see that a 6 sigma process had 3.4 parts per million. So you may have heard the term 3.4 parts per million defect rate associated with 6 sigma, and this is mathematically how it's derived. Let's move now on to lean. So lean involves doing what's right for the customer. We want to have value add. Again, this is aligned to what customer needs are. But then we have non-value add but necessary. What might that be? Something that the customer is not willing to pay for. For example, payroll. You got to have payroll, but the customer is not really willing to pay for that. Then you've got waste. Now you've got all sorts of waste that you might have. You've got overproduction, transportation, inventory, waiting, motion, defects, overprocessing. These are forms of waste. One of the things about lean, they want to focus on the reduction of waste. The other thing about lean is you want to look at the entire value stream. So what is the value stream? It could be concept to launch if you're doing a new product. It could be order to production. Somebody orders something, gets into production, and actual delivery. Or it could be raw materials, how it goes through the supplier to get to the customer. Customer to final disposition. So these are all value streams. So through the value stream, we would like to look at the reduction of waste, flow continuously. We want to have it so the customer pulls for value instead of pushing, like we often do, and on-time delivery need that meets our needs, customer expectations. A lot of times we don't have metrics that actually look at these particular value streams that we might have in an organization. And that's what we think is so important. And we talk about 30,000 foot level reporting of how you can actually put that as part of your scorecards. So we think that's an important part of the overall deployment of Six Sigma. So lean principles basically look at the workplace, people, and system, and listed there are various subcategories of each of those pieces. But again, I think one of the things that's really important is to align this work to the performance metrics. Okay, now let's move on to issues and resolutions to Lean Six Sigma deployment. I'm not going to get into a lot of details on this because there's really not much time, but I always say, is there a better way? So in my book, Integrated Enterprise Excellence Volume 1, I make reference to a couple articles that I wrote. It was common problems with Lean Six Sigma deployments and what to do about them, and also starting a Six Sigma initiative. And I've, like I said, written an article on these, and if you want to get a copy of the book at a discount, we got a discount coupon in the back, or if one of these articles you would like me to send you, just send me an email and I'll do so. My email address will be given out later. Again, I come back and say, is there a better way? I've got another polling question here, Lon. So how did you obtain your Lean Six Sigma training?
And so that poll is launched. If you all would please submit your answer. You can actually pick more than one for this answer. We have a couple of options there. You're new and maybe you haven't taken any training. We'd like to know if you've done a 4-week black belt or a 2-week green belt classroom course. A black belt or green belt course that's taken less than 4 weeks, or the 2 weeks for black belt. or have you done your Lean Six Sigma training online? We appreciate the participation. Most of you all have voted. So I'll go ahead and close the poll here. Again, we have even distribution there for it.
Yes, sure do. Okay, so we got about a third people are new and have not really been involved too much in Lean Six Sigma. 34 for the 4 weeks, 2 weeks, and 23 for a shorter duration, and 28% online. Well, thank you. Got some more work for you. Got another polling question. We're talking about certification this time around.
Yeah, and we'd like to know again, if you're new to Lean Six Sigma, go ahead and select that. But we'd like to know if you've gotten certified by taking a test with a refresher course, without a refresher course. If you've done a project for your certification, or if your certification was just kind of a certificate of achievement for completing a course that was a part of a corporate initiative.
And this is the last question, so.
And then we do have some comments coming in. Thanks for those too. Some of us were not trained in Lean Six Sigma, but Six Sigma only, and are not certified. Definitely take the first answer there if you weren't certified. Thanks for that participation. I'll go ahead and close this poll.
Okay, again, we're pretty consistent. About 33% again is new to Lean Six Sigma. Okay, well that's good and consistent. Okay, and about the biggest one is training required for certification. But does that mean that there's quite a few people that got their certification without having a project, I guess,
well, that's
too?
actually the highest is with the project at 29%.
Yep.
So a third has required the project.
Right. That's good. Okay, very good. Well, again, thank you for your participation.
And definitely continue to send in any questions you have.
Yes, we'll be getting those primarily at the end unless Alon thinks something is timely on a slide that I'm at right now. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about is an enhanced Lean Six Sigma process improvement project execution roadmap. So I think that there's maybe a little bit better way of doing it than we have something that's done traditionally. Now, if we look at Lean Six Sigma, the execution, it follows DMAIC. It's define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Now, if people take training, a lot of times that DMAIC roadmap on how it's actually trained and the tools and where they're put and how they're trained can have a lot of variability associated with it. And I'm suggesting that there might be a better way, or how can we put it so that everybody's working to the same sheet of music, so to speak. So what I put together is a DMAIC roadmap that is shown here. Now notice I've put additional drill downs on measure. Now, as I alluded to earlier, I did training with a company that actually did training for GE. So this was in the late 90s. And I went in and tried to put the tools in the particular phase that I thought GE did. So in the measure phase, they had quite a few tools that I didn't think were quote-unquote measure. You know, you had planning of projects. Now, baselining a project was there, but then I added also lean a little bit later. That's where I'm thinking it fits in the overall roadmap. But MSA, measurement system analysis, and then wisdom of the organization. GE actually had like flow charting, cause and effect diagram, cause and effect matrix, and FMEA all included within the measure phase. And I thought it would have been better to break it out. So that's the reason I got these additional drill downs. And that's what I'm going to be kind of walking through as a guide and give you some thoughts on what I think a project ought to look like. So this roadmap is actually explained in very details in my 1,100-plus page book on Volume 3 shown there, or I've got Project Execution Guide It's 8.5 by 11. It doesn't exactly fit in your pocket as some memory joggers do, but this is a memory jogger, so to speak, for the execution of these roadmap steps. Okay, let's jump into what methodologies are included in the various phases of the roadmap. So the deliverables are listed there, and also some of the tools are listed on the right-hand side. The SIPOC would be supplier, input, process, output, and customer. So you would want to do that in the define phase. Another point that somebody made when they signed up for the class is they talked about cost of poor quality. Cost of poor quality can be a very time-consuming to actually calculate. But I've created, and I'd like to talk about cost of doing nothing differently. Okay, now how might you apply that? Well, if you deal with cost of poor quality, you're talking about there has to be a certain type of defect. But there are certain outputs to processes that are not really defects. For example, inventory or WIFM that you might have. There's really not a defect associated with it. However, lower numbers are better. So then I would say the cost of doing nothing differently. So that's one of the first things you want to do. Now the other thing there is important to have a problem statement. So this would be an example of a problem statement that you might have. So it's really very specific on what the issue is. And that's what we're supposed to address through our project. So we notice that it increased customer complaints, shipping costs, and you lost sales. Now we got some monetary implications on how important this is. Okay, let's move down to the measure piece. Again, these are some of the deliverables and some of the tools associated with that. And I'm going to be elaborating a little bit more on some of the tools and the methodologies. Now, one of the first things that I think is very important is tracking and creating a good baseline. And I really think it's important that one creates a 30,000-foot level baseline chart. Now, this is a unique Minitab add-in that we provide free of charge. So if you're interested in getting a copy, simply email me later and I will send you a link so that you can download and get this Minitab add-in. But for this particular chart, we're looking at overall wastage. Now in this case, we've got a special cause. Somebody might say, oh my gosh, we've got to really look into that special cause. But I really like to step back and look at the big picture in addition to that special cause that you might have. Because you have a right to look at that red spot there, or red outlier when it's out of control, so to speak. But you don't want to just talk about all these ups and down variation. And that's really important, whether you're looking at projects or looking at scorecards that you have in the business. So with our 30,000-foot level add-in, it creates a statement at the bottom. So for this case here, we're saying it's if we ignore that red out of control condition, we can still say we've got an estimated performance rate of 5.3%. That's the amount of non-conformances or wastage that we have per week. So overall, it's a little bit above 5%. Now, if that's a problem, then we need to resolve it. And the way we can resolve those common cause issues is executing Lean Six Sigma DMAIC roadmap. But this is the baseline that we want to change through actually executing these projects. Now, one of the questions that we might ask is, do we have a good measurement system? If you're in manufacturing, you say, I got a part, if I measure it again, am I going to get the same dimension? Now, what if somebody else measures it? Are they going to get the same dimension? If that's not true, or it's going to have some variability associated with it, that's part of the measurement phase on the measurement system analysis. However, the measurement system gets involved in a lot of situations. For example, if you go into a doctor's office, would we get the same diagnosis for a condition that we have if we went to one doctor, another doctor, and a third doctor. If they may have different opinions on our particular condition, that's a measurement system there. So it's all around us. If you go into the doctor's office and they measure your blood pressure, but every time you go in the doctor's office, you get a lot of anxiety, your blood pressure is probably going to be higher, so they could be treating you for a blood pressure issue. That's just because you're in the doctor's office and that's not the normal rate that you have. That technically is somewhat of a measurement system there for your health. But that's one of the first things you want to look into. One of the things, the way you do it is through a measurement system analysis. So now we do an experiment to actually assess this. The other piece that is included within the measurement phase is a flow chart. This describes what you actually do. You look at the steps and so on, and you might find out one person can be doing things one way and another person can be doing things another way, and that can be adding a lot of variability to your 30,000-foot level metrics. So that's something that you really want to know, and then you would want to eventually do best practices and have a good process documented for that particular metric that you're trying to improve. Another tool that's involved in the measure phase, which I put in there, is a lean value stream map. So this gets into how lean gets involved within the overall DMAIC roadmap. If we're going in and looking at a metric that we're trying to improve and it deals with lead times or how long it takes to do something, you want to start thinking about lean because there could be some waste in handoffs or transportation or inventory or so on. And so you want to look at the value stream that you might have to determine where I should be focused my efforts to improve that 30,000-foot level that I'm trying to do. That's dealing with the lead time or waste associated with it or inventories. Another tool that's related to the measure phase is a cause and effect diagram. Now often what you look at your particular situation and you'll ask the question, well, what can our process be affected by materials, machines, methods, personnel, and environment? So those are 6 different areas that you might want to focus on when you're brainstorming for what could be done to improve your process. Now you don't have to just have those particular categories, but you really want to go in and have somewhat of a structure, and then you can build this fishbone diagram, and it captures a little bit more broader aspect of what might actually impact the overall output of your response. And you can also break it down to some inputs may be very difficult to address, while some other ones may be a little bit easier. So you can have different spin on this cause and effect diagram. Let's move now to the analyze phase. I didn't cover all the tools, obviously, that were considered in the measure phase. I get into those in the books if you really want to get details, or we also cover that in our training. Our training is really lined to the books, so you can reference the books long after the training. In the analyze phase, what we really want to do is focus on visualization and also do some statistical analyses. So visualization involves some tools that I've listed there. And we also want to create, when we're doing these statistical tests, they're basically hypothesis tests. So if we've got a recent region of stability in our 30,000-foot level, we might ask questions, and this could come out of the brainstorming session, that we think there could be differences by departments, by machines, days of the week, time of the day, and so on. Those are things that we then want to analyze to see if they make a significant difference. This can help us try to figure out where we should focus our efforts to improve. So one of the tools that you can use is analysis of means. Now, I show on the x-axis types. So in this case, we got 7 different types. So you should not confuse this with a control chart. This is a statistical evaluation of each type relative to the overall average of the response. The overall average of the response is about 64.56. So what you're actually doing is testing type 6. That could be department number 6 or call center number 6. Hold time could be the response you're looking at. And you're testing that overall average to the overall mean. Similarly, 7 versus the overall mean. 6 and 7 are both significantly different from the overall average. So if you're trying to determine what's the lowest average, or how can I make the response as low as possible, then you might look at it and say, well, what is department number 7 doing to making the average low? And then you ask the question, what is department 6 doing so it makes the average so high? So this gives you some area of, or something that you might look at to improve your process. Let's look at improve now. So now improvement is what I've done is I've added some lean tools to the improve phase in the integrated enterprise excellence version of this. And we've got the 5 S's, mistake proofing, future state map. Now, keep in mind what I'm really focusing on is the improvement of the 30,000 foot level metric. And these are some of the tools that you might use to make it better. One of the things that you want to focus on is error proofing. You say, what can I go in to do to make my process so it's error proof? Maybe you want to have automation even part of your process. And I think that's important things to consider, but just don't automate everything. You want to look at what's important. The other thing that's really important is design of experiments. So we might have some things that we want to evaluate. So the question I'm often asked is, well, does design of experiment just apply for manufacturing? I said, definitely not. Anytime you're thinking about changing something and you're not sure if you should do it or not, you ought to think design of experiments. Because if you just try it and you don't try it in combination with something else, you might think it made a difference, but it might be a detrimental effect if something else had occurred at the same time. DOE is a way of addressing those situations. So we can test for interactions, and I even go up to 12 or 13 different variables or 14 and 16 combinations. So we discuss this in our training, but it's really important if you're looking at trying to evaluate something that you might want to change because you think it could make a difference, you really should think of DOE techniques when you're running that experiment. So what we want to do in the improve phase, we want to assess whether a process has actually changed. Now, proof of the pudding that we actually made a change in our process is the 30,000 foot level chart changed to a new level of performance. I want to underscore this is not a traditional control chart. You know it, for those people who have had control charting, it looks like one, but it's very different in its usage. This is a 30,000 foot level chart, not unlike an airplane view of the Earth. And that's what we want to view our projects at the 30,000 foot level. Control charts are to control a process. For example, a certain machine, and now I want to make sure that machine doesn't drift or change. The whole sampling approach is quite different on how you do that. So 30,000 foot level approach is unique and described in details in my books. Let's look at control. Now this is an important aspect of DMAIC. A lot of times what happens is we might make an improvement, but that doesn't sustain. Things actually go back to the old way. And we don't want that to happen. We like to make it mistake-proof whenever we can, or you might have to have some metrics that actually go in and make sure things don't change. So the 50-foot level charts can help you when an undesirable occurrence occurs, when action should be taken. You may even want to use a pre-control chart for this. So whenever things start drifting, then we need to take immediate action. So this is something that you're using to control the process. So, for example, in the grocery checkout line, the 30,000-foot level chart might be how long does people have to wait in the checkout line. The 50-foot level could be I'm looking at the number of people in the line, and whenever it gets above a certain number, then I'm going to be adding another checker or taking away a checker depending upon how many people in the line are there. And a pre-control chart can be useful for that. So think about this. What process parameters should you be make more airproof? Where should you have improved controls? And so on. Now, what I didn't mention there is I like to use a value chain. So now everything's clickable. It's automatically updated, and that's also an aspect of control. So the DMAIC checklists are available in these books that I'm showing here. It gets into very much details, so now everybody is actually thinking the same way when they execute a project. It's not like you have to do all these steps, because really what I'm trying to do is improve the metrics. So you could go in and just try things out and say, I know what to do, and if you did it, then that's fine. Your 30,000-foot level metric should show it. So now the question is, how do we create improvement efforts so that the big picture benefits? Because a lot of times what happens is executives don't see the benefit of what we're doing. We're often operating in silos. We're not really selecting projects so the big picture benefits, and they're not strategic. And I think a lot of the responses that we saw on the polling questions illustrate that these issues are quite common. So typically metrics look at fiscal year. Unrelated to the improvement system, make point-to-point comparisons, comparing this month to last month or this month to a previous year for this month. But what we really have is Y as a function of X. That is, the output is a function of the inputs and the process itself. So if you don't like Y, you got to change the X's or the process itself. So effective metrics at the enterprise level, and view the enterprise as a system of processes, acknowledge effective variability. A lot of times we'll have a table of numbers or a red, yellow, green scorecard, and they don't talk about variability at all. And we want to also integrate the metrics that we have for performance scorecarding with long-lasting improvements. A lot of times, Lean Six Sigma deployments die, and that's the reason I believe that happens, because we're not aligning these improvements programs with the overall business system that we have in its related scorecards. So integrated enterprise excellence actually addresses these needs. So the integrated enterprise excellence system can be a great system for getting projects that's going to benefit the enterprise as a whole. Now, the first step of this system is the vision and mission, which I'm sure your company already has. Step number 2 is the value chain that describes what your organization does and how it measures what it does. Satellite level or financial metrics, and 30,000-foot level or operational metrics. And we want to track those using a similar methodology that I described earlier. Then what we want to do is analyze the enterprise. We want to look at the big picture. Notice I have not talked about strategies yet or project selection. I want to analyze the enterprise to determine where we are to focus our efforts. I was a keynote at a presentation at a major defense contractor, and the general manager said, gee whiz, we've been doing Lean for so many years, and it's been great. I said, okay, I toured the facility. I said, you're doing a great job in Lean, but I noticed you let out a lot of idle equipment. What projects you do in sales and marketing? They weren't doing anything. That's where they should focus their efforts. So you want to look at the big picture, theory constraints, customers, you want to look at the competition, and so on. Then step number 4, you want to get those satellite metrics. You want to look at and create SMART, specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time-based satellite level metric goals. Now in step 5, we're going to create strategies that are aligned to the satellite goals. Notice I did not start with strategies. I was doing a session for executives in South America, And they said, Forrest, they said, we just did our strategies aligned to our vision and mission. I said, well, that might be okay, but the thing is, don't you think you want to align it to your financial needs? Number 6 is we want to identify high potential areas to work on. And we want to look at what 30,000 foot level metrics we really want to improve to make things better. Now there's going to be an owner of that metric, of that process, asking for that project to get completed. And then we execute projects. If you did a good job, you improved the processes in step number 2, the value chain, which improved your 30,000 foot level, which improved your satellite or financial goals. And notice how step 9 loops back to step 3. So you've got a plan to check act for the enterprise as a whole. Now you notice step number 1 is vision and mission. Step 2 is your value chain. Step 3 is analyze. Now we've got step 4, 5, 6, and 7, where now what we're doing is we're having alignment of projects to overall business goals. And notice also there's a process owner asking for that project to get done. So that's what I think is really important to go in and make Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma successful, is we'll need to align our projects with not just strategies, but also performance goals that are tracked over time using the 30,000 foot level methodology. So when we do this, we have the 30,000 foot level chart, how we're performing. We look at the customer needs. It's got a non-conformance rate that we consider is not acceptable. That creates a pool for project creation. And now it transformed to a new enhanced level of performance through execution of the project. And now we've got the frequency of non-conformance went down. Now we can do the same sort of thing for attribute data. Again, the process shifted. So whenever a 30,000 foot level chart has a recent region of stability, we say the process is predictable. This statement applies to a DMAIC project execution that you're undertaking, or it could be a KPI that you're looking at. It could be a part dimension, or maybe some time to execute a process. If it's not a desirable prediction, then you need to execute an improvement. You could run hypothesis tests, again, like we talked about earlier, difference between machines, department, data, weeks, and so on, to help you figure out what you might do differently. So when you're making improvements, you can follow a DMAIC roadmap, might even do a Kaizen event, incorporate some other approach to improvement. But what we really want to do is see a difference, an enhancement to the metric that we're tracking at the 30,000 foot level. So in this case here, this particular metric improved, and it was aligned to our overall enterprise improvement plan for the organization as a whole. We wanted to reduce the wastage by 10%, and we more than achieved that through that execution of the project. So I'd like to say use 30,000 foot level predictive performance reporting for the right behaviors. So the initial cost of the wastage was a certain value, and now we were able to reduce the cost. So a lot of times we tend to, with traditional Lean Six Sigma, we have a push for project creation. What we're trying to do is create a metric improvement need approach for pulling for improvement efforts that benefit the big picture. Typical training that we offer, and other companies do likewise, is have this duration of training. We offer most of these training as on-site, online, or as a public session. So let's just readdress our learning objectives. The first bullet talks about some of the histories of Lean and Six Sigma, so hopefully you have a little bit of better background in that area, maybe picked up a couple things even though you might be experienced in the concepts. I talk about what you might do to address some issues and resolutions for Lean Six Sigma deployment. Again, if you want, I can send you an article on those, for those more details on that if you send me an email. talked about an execution roadmap for Lean Six Sigma that integrated the tools and was an enhancement, and then how you could have efforts of the big picture benefits. So again, I think there's a better way, and I'd like to think, some of the techniques that I described in this webinar can help you start thinking about what you might do differently to address those issues. So what's in it for me? Well, we talked about having a free PDF of the IEE DMAIC roadmap. This is a wall chart. It's pretty big, so you could print it on your own. We talked about also how you could get a discount for some of the books that I described previously, and also this Minitab software add-in that you might want to give it a try.
Thank you, Forrest. Wow, what great information. I know upon registration, there were so many just different statements made about issues that people do experience with Lean Six Sigma and implementing it within an organization. So I do want to pause here and just let you guys know, as far as the PDF of the roadmap, that is available right now to you in the GoToWebinar function on your screen. If you open that up, look in the section that says Handouts. Once you double click on that, you'll be able to download that and save it. So we hope that that will help you be successful. What else can we do to help you be successful? What else can we ask if you want to do something differently? And so we want to open up for questions, answers. If you have a question, please put that in the chat function. If you have just a statement to make, please put that in, and we'd like to open it up now.
Okay. Any questions that you have, please feel free to text them to us. So, Lon, what kind of questions do we have here?
Great. Well, there's some questions coming in. Thank you guys for your participation. And again, just want to say, Forrest, that was amazing. Very much needed and lots of participation in this webinar. So we're excited to answer these questions. We have a question about the champion training, and it says, how important is champion training to executive buy-in?
Well, champion training, I think, is really important. However, traditional champion training that occurred was aligned to more of finding projects, getting them done. And so I think it was more aligned to the people at the executive level to find projects. Now, what I'm looking at is a champion training that's a little different, in that I think what's important for executives to start seeing the actual flow and how they looked at metrics and how do they create metrics and actually get involved in the selection of projects using that 9-step system that we talk about. That's what we'd like to move towards. We're not going to have that occur overnight, but the thing is, that's what we really want them to start thinking about, their metrics as a process as opposed to just a table of numbers and I need to meet the quarterly numbers. What can I do to better track my metrics and actually make improvement so the enterprise as a whole benefits?
Great. We have another question here about the executive buy-in as well. How might you upsell these concepts to management?
Alon, we've been asked that question a lot, haven't we?
Every webinar.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we've just recently done something that hopefully will help you address that question. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be switching over here to, to my web browser here. I'm typing in a website called, this would be stopfirefighting.com, and I'm hitting enter. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm scrolling down on this, and you can do this at your own time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this arrow here, and I'm going to start a recording.
Inconclusive performance metrics are a disaster waiting to happen. When it does, how can you know what caused it, and if it will happen again? Projects look different at 30,000 feet than they do on the ground. What if there was a performance reporting system some steps illuminated the underlying root cause of underperformance and helped you avoid it in the future by providing metrics that tell everyone what to expect. IEE.
Sorry about that. Let's see. I guess I hit a pause here.
That system. It's performance reporting software that uses your existing data to distinguish between expected trends and unusual events that deviate from desired results. IEE provides the insights you and your team need to make step-change improvements for better performance and better outcomes. IEE can stop reaction-based management and get you back to the work that matters.
Well, hopefully that video is something that you might look at later to go in and consider showing it to others in your organization and other peers and whoever else might be able to benefit from that. So sorry about the hiccup with the volume, but anyway, hopefully you got the idea and know where to find it. It's just stopfirefighting.com.
Okay, thanks, Forrest. Also, the social media sites that you see below also have that video available, so that's another easy access to it. Another question here, just a comment actually here from an attendee. When first implementing Lean Six Sigma, should we look at a quick win before it's presented to the company?
Yeah, that's what happens a lot of times, or people ask that question a lot of time. And in fact, in that article, I really even talk about that a little bit. The problem you can have a lot of times with that is that that doesn't necessarily make it so that the effort is sustained. What I would suggest is go in and take one of your KPIs that executive thinks is really important and go in and track that at the 30,000 foot level. Okay. Then what you could do is then say, gee whiz, by even looking at it differently, we might determine that we thought we were making improvements and not. And then what we do is say, okay, leader here, process owner, do you want to improve this metric? And if they want to improve that metric, then you would go in and do what you're talking about. And then that could be a pilot that you then go in and talk to. But I would suggest actually doing the 30,000 foot level charting of a KPI that's really important and saying this is the metric I want to improve, not go in and look at, well, I want to save so much money, because the money's going to come out of it already, but you're really not just hunting for a project, but now you're saying there's a process owner that owns this metric, they need to improve it, and then I'm going to execute an improvement effort to actually go in and change that metric. And the roadmap that I talked about is one means to actually make that change occur.
Okay, great. Thanks, Forrest, for that. I'm going to combine a couple of questions here along the same lines, and a couple of attendees are asking for case studies that can be shared or downloaded at a later time, emailed maybe, and then also examples or case studies that look at the application of Lean Six Sigma to transactions in non-manufacturing verticals. So we do have some of those, Forrest, if you'd like to share, but also on that Stop Firefighting website, there's a downloadable option for
Yes,
some.
we actually have one that's talking about it's a video, quite done real well. It's a manufacturing environment, but it shows that, and we have some listings of various case studies that we've encountered. The other one I've got even that I can send if you're interested, how you can go in and learn a lot more from various ways you look at your performance measures, because that can be very enlightening also. So it's more than just how much money you say you saved. You know, we have people saving, you know, lots of money with various projects, but it's really important that you create a long-lasting system as part of it, so it creates a control methodology. And what we're suggesting, even having automatically updates, performance scorecards, and so on as part of this overall system.
And there is another option as far as a case study on our website in video format as a webinar that was previously recorded. in the online resource library at smartersolutions.com. So there are some options there at smartersolutions.com, stopfirefighting.com, if you're looking for case studies.
Yeah, and also, like Ilana alluded to earlier, give us a call if you got something specific that you're looking at doing. We're more than happy to offer suggestions on what you might do. Even though you don't use our services, we might be able to give you some insight.
Question here. In your last slide, you indicated that there were some issues with traditional control charting and reporting. Can you provide more details?
Yes. Okay, what I'll do again, go to the, I'm going to change now over to Smarter Solutions website. Okay, and Ilan was talking about this resource center. This resource center is something I suggest you check out, and you may want to have a link to it. Okay, in this, you got online resource center, blogs. You also got forest favorites. So if you click on forest favorites, okay, you'll notice that there's a lot of linkages here. Okay, and one is XBAR and R chart, control chart issues and resolutions. So if you go in and click on that, I wrote an article on why XBAR and R charts can lead to the behaviors that are not what you think they might be. It can give you some false signal. The same thing can occur with P charts and C charts. So, and then I give quite a few examples here of 30,000 foot level reporting. So hopefully that addresses your question.
We have a question here. I have an existing Lean Six Sigma culture environment, but we want to change this to make it more successful. Where do we start?
Well, what I suggest is you start looking at that video, because a lot of times organizations, after a while, they found the low-hanging fruit and they have difficulty going in and addressing more complicated change needs. And the video is something that I think that you really want to consider and look at wholeheartedly, and give us a call, because I believe that you want to go in and start aligning your Lean Six Sigma to the business system, and line it to the scorecards that you have. And you would like to also make the scorecards reported so they're from a process point of view. So this is a significant change that's that now you're going to be able to see more where I should focus my efforts strategically that's going to help the enterprise as a whole. So I would suggest that you actually look into that, and you can give us a call and we can give you more information if that piques your interest. But look at the video, and if you say, gee whiz, that's what we really need, and give us a call.
Great. Well, Forrest, excellent presentation. We've got some comments here. We appreciate that feedback. Great information, great PDF, awesome roadmap. We appreciate that feedback. We'd like to get your feedback on the survey when you exit the webinar. We do, if you have another question, we do have another minute for another question, but I'll go ahead and wrap up. Just want to remind you all that the handout section does make available the PDF roadmap. It is a huge file that you can print out and have as a wall chart. There is the mini-tab software add-in that is free. If you'd like that, email Forrest at smartersolutions.com. And the references to the Lean Six Sigma Body of Knowledge books, the discount code was given on the slide before, and that was FB 2015 when you go to smartersolutions.com/store. So that you have that there. I just want to make sure all of you attendees for joining us today, you get the deliverables that you had hoped to. We appreciate your time. And if you have any other questions or feedback, feel free to give us a call or send us an email. Thanks for joining.